What's going on, guys? I'm Nathan and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here and you don't know what I do fishing technique videos, DIY projects, kayak mods, gear and bait reviews. So if you're into that kind of thing, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a comment down below of a video that you'd like me to make. Today's video, I'm going to teach you everything that you need to know about jigs. Stick around. Okay guys, so today's video is going to be a little different than my normal videos. I'm not going to do a video series this time. If you guys like that, let me know. I can do another one, but we're going to talk about jigs today. Okay, so first I'm going to talk about the different kinds of jigs, and then I'm going to talk about the gear setup and fishing line, and then we'll talk about where, how, and when to fish them. Okay? All right, so let's get started. So this is what's called a pro style or ball jig. It's just like a mix between a arky head and a football head, kinda. It's got a rattle on it. All right, it's made by Strike King. A little bit about this jig. So I have it paired with a creature bait for my trailer. One of the things you want to make sure when you put a trailer on a jig is you want to make sure the appendages aren't inhibited by the skirt, right? So you want to make sure that that skirt is just above or right at the appendages. I had this skirt a little long because what they do, right, they sit on the bottom and then this skirt puffs out, right? And then the appendages start to kick as you move it through the water or drag it along the bottom with this style jig. All right, moving on. This is my heavy structure jig. I fish it around a lot of thick vegetation. Notice the line tie is in line with the hook. Notice the line tie is not with this jig, right? Now, what this does is prevents it from getting hung up as much, and it has a very pointy head. Okay, so it can get in and out of cover really easy. I love this jig. It also has 2 rattles on it. All right, the next style we're gonna start with we're talking about is the arky head. Now there are different kinds of arky head jigs. Okay, I have a couple and we'll talk about them. All right, so this is an arky head style jig. Okay, it's like a round head, just a normal jig. This is also an arky head style jig. Okay, I fish these more than I do the other one, and I'll tell you why. These have a flat spot on the bottom. See it? Now, that allows this jig to sit nice and pretty in the water. And that skirt will puff out nice, and it gives that trailer plenty of room to move. Give you a lot of action. Has rattles on it as well. I fish a lot of rattling jigs. Okay, so next you have a football jig, or a football head jig. And that's where the head looks like a football. Okay, now this is also, the line tie is perpendicular to the hook. Okay, that's one of the things you guys want to pay attention to when you're picking out a jig. All right, the next style is called a swim jig. Now you can tell these jigs because the head is kind of curved up, right? The line tie is in line with the hook. Now how you fish these is you throw the jig out and you reel it back. Okay, you swim it back. Let's see. So that's really all the kind of styles of jigs I fish. They come in different shapes and sizes. I got one of my smaller jigs here. It's an arky style, kind of round head. A couple things. So I'm a part of a couple different fishing pages on Facebook. And one of the dudes on there asked if people how they take care of your weed guard. Saw a lot of bad advice being given out on that page, and I'm going to give you guys some of that advice, and I'm going to tell you why it's wrong. Okay, there are dudes on there telling them to thin this weed guard out. Right? Don't do that. That's a bad. Don't do that. They're made thick for a reason, right? They're so you don't hang up. So the hook does not cause you to get snagged and then break your line and you lose a $5 jig, okay? There's also dudes telling them to trim them down. I do agree with that, and I'll tell you why. This one has already been trimmed down, and you can see that the weed guard is right about where the barb of the hook is, right? Now, I'm gonna teach you guys how to fan it out after I go over this next point. Here's a jig that has not been trimmed, okay? Look how much longer that weed guard is compared to that hook, compared to the barb, right? It's not that bad. Don't plan on trimming this jig because it's a swim jig, okay? I'm not throwing it around structure or anything. Okay, all right, let's talk about fanning out the weed guard, okay? There's really one good way that you want to do it. All right, so you see the spines of the weed guard, right? You want to kind of maneuver those around your finger until your finger is completely in the center, okay? Take some patience. Once your finger's in the center, all right, you want to make sure that you're pushing directly down in the center. Okay, you want to push your finger all the way down to the bottom. All right. This one does not want to fan out. There we go. All right, so once you do that, you want to push it all the way down to the bottom, okay? Boom, look, see that? Fans it out. That's all you need. Now, you don't need a whole bunch of fanciness, pulling spines out and whatnot. That's just, you're gonna ruin your jig and you're not gonna be able to fish it and you're gonna have to go spend more money. All right, let's talk about trailers, okay? I really like creature bait trailers. You also can use like paddle tails. Let's see, I've got a paddle tail on this one. Little paddle tail on my swim jig. I also have a paddle tail on my structure jig. Okay, it's just all what you plan on imitating, right? As far as color, they also make craws. Zoom makes a super chunk. It's like a 3.5 inch trailer. Okay, really cool action in the water. I don't even know where I was going. Don't be too picky with your trailers, okay? As long as they have some appendages and it gives you some action, that's what you want, okay? So you don't want to have a fluke as a jig trailer. You could, I've done it and caught fish, but you want something that's gonna give like a creature bait, like a craw or something like that, okay? Bass really aren't all that intelligent, so it's gonna be easier to catch them. All right, let's go ahead and get to the rod and reel. Okay, so you want to fish a jig on a medium heavy fast action rod. The reason is because they have a thicker gauged hook or a heavy wire hook, right? You need some backbone to pull that hook through the fish's mouth, and you need reaction time, right? So anything besides a fast action rod isn't going to be fast enough. Let me back up. You can catch them on anything. You can catch them on other rods, okay? The best rod is a medium heavy fast action rod. Okay, I don't want people saying, oh, coach, I catch them on medium action rods all the time. That's cool, dude. I'm talking about hookup ratios and fish retention, right? I hardly ever lose fish. Just do with that information what you will. I'll give you guys little statistics. I've been fishing for over 20 years, right? And I've lost maybe 6 fish, right? I don't lose fish. All right, so medium heavy fast action. The longer the rod, the longer the cast. Okay, so if you get a 6'10" rod versus like a 7'6" or higher, right? The longer the rod, the longer the cast. The shorter the rod, the more accurate the cast will be. Okay, so just keep that in mind when you're going to buy a rod. As I've said before, my rods have multiple uses because I'm just not that kind of dude that I can afford to buy 30 fishing rods and only use that one rod for that one technique. That's just not who I am. All right. Real quick, let's hit jig trailers again. As far as color, you guys see that I matched some colors, right, on my jig and jig trailers. Okay, not that important. The fish, they're just gonna look at it and be like, oh, that looks like a crawdad, and they're gonna go eat it, right? They're not gonna inspect it like Sherlock Holmes and figure out that it's, that blue doesn't match that green, I'm not gonna eat that. That's not how they think. All right, let's talk about line. As I've said before, I fish mostly fluorocarbon. That's just my go-to. And I typically don't go below 15 pounds. My go-to is 17-pound test fluorocarbon. You can fish this on any kind of line, right? You can fish jigs on any kind of line. The best are going to be fluorocarbon, like straight fluorocarbon, or braid with a fluorocarbon leader. Why, you might ask? Mono stretches. Okay, fluorocarbon does not stretch as much as mono. Fluorocarbon does stretch, just not as much as monofilament. Monofilament also floats and soaks up water, so that, just do with that what you will. So, now that we've talked about different kind of jigs, rod and reel, line, jig trailers, let's talk about where we're gonna fish these bad boys, okay? Anything with a football style head. Okay, so anything with this style head, you do not want to fish it around big rocks. So this is the kind of jig that you want to fish around, like gravel, if you can find like little rock beds or something like that. Because what it's going to do is it's going to teeter totter, right? As you drag it, it's going to do this. Okay, that's what it's designed to do. If you fish around big rocks, you have a extremely high chance of getting hung up and breaking off. So Arky. So I cast and drag all of my jigs except my swim jigs. Okay, this one you can fish around bigger rocks. You're not going to get hung up as much. You really have a chance with getting hung up with any kind of jig. So just keep that in mind when you're casting. You want to cast short of your cover, or see if you can find a way to get parallel. Structure. These Pointees. Okay, I fish these around heavy brush piles or rocks. Right, it doesn't matter. I fish it pretty much everywhere because they don't really get hung up. The other style of Arky. Where'd it go? Here it is. Right? Throw it out. Fish it pretty much anywhere. Okay? Arky style jigs are my favorite jigs to fish because they're so versatile. I can fish them anywhere. Big rocks, little rocks, trees, brush piles, anywhere. Okay? Alright, so you're gonna throw the jig out. Okay? You're gonna let it sink on a semi-slack line. Okay, what that means is you're gonna make your cast. Okay, whether that be a roll cast, whether you load up and launch that jig, right? You want to let it sink on a semi-slack line. So what that means is once I throw it out and it hits the water, okay, I'm not gonna feed out a bunch of line, right? And the line's not gonna be laying on the water and the jig's gonna fall. Okay, I want to keep some tension on the line. So as the jig falls, you can either loosen your tension knob and it will fall faster, or you can slowly pull it out, right? But you want to make sure that the line's not sitting on the water, okay? All right, so once it's on the bottom, really unlimited ways to fish this, okay? You can fish it with the Cadence, as in pop, pop, let it sit, pop, pop, let it sit, or you can drag it. You can drag and pop it. You can yo-yo that dude, right? Really versatile bait to fish. You can fish them any time of year, any water temp. Obviously, the colder the water, the slower you want to fish. That being said, a swim jig, not the best to fish in the winter. All right, so let's go over a warm-out style jig. And that's a bladed jig, okay, or a chatterbait. You can fish these just like spinner baits, okay? Same thing with a swim jig. You fish just like you fish a spinner bait. Spinner bait. I don't know what's wrong with my English today. So you're gonna throw it, and you'll find a grass line, or you're gonna find a lay down or anything like that, and you're just gonna throw it out and reel it back in. Throw it out, reel it back in. Nice, easy retrieve. Okay, you can burn it. You can do a medium retrieve. I throw it out, and it's nice and easy. Just get that tucka under the water, right? Another thing you can do with bladed jigs or chatterbaits, you can yo-yo them. You pull it up, let it sink. Pull it up, let it sink. Pull it up, let it sink. Okay, so let's talk about water conditions. Okay, so if you're in clear water, you want to fish a more natural color. I've caught fish on a black and blue jig in clear water, but that being said, you want to fish something more like this. Okay, with natural tones, browns, greens, oranges, something like that. Okay, the rattles really come into play when the water is murky. That's typically where you want to fish your black and blues, your bright colors, something like that. Guys, I don't think I hit the reel. Let me back up. Fishing reel. I would not fish a jig on anything less than a 6:4 gear ratio. Okay. You can fish them up on the really high speed reels like the 9-to-1s, the 10-to-1s, the 8s, the 7s. Don't go below a 6. Okay. The reason is bass have a really bad habit of picking that jig up and running towards your boat or kayak, in my case, right? So you want to be able to catch up to that fish so you can set the hook. If you fish a jig the right way though, you'll most likely be able to set the hook before the fish takes off. So let's talk about that. Now I've heard countless stories of dudes fishing a jig and then there's a line just takes off, right? That happens to me a lot too. Mostly at night when I can't really see my line. Well, you'll be dragging, you'll let it sit, you'll be dragging, you'll let it sit, and then all of a sudden you don't feel it anymore, right? You pick your rod tip up and it's not there. You probably have a fish. Set the hook. They also hit it pretty hard, right? Especially in warmer water, bass will slam a jig, and I'm talking murder this thing, right? Obviously, you know that's a bite. Set the hook. Okay, so now that we've gone over this stuff, guys, if you like today's video, please give it a thumbs up. And I'd just like to thank everybody for the support. I really appreciate it. Bass fishing is one of my major passions in my life. And I just love teaching people how to do it. So thanks again for all the support. You guys have a great day, and let's make each other better.